Hello everyone, welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. So today is 14th April 2025 and today we have very important articles for the discussion, and without any delay let's get into the discussion and let's discuss all these important articles in a very detailed manner so that this discussion will be helpful for your upcoming exams. And the first topic with which we are going to start this discussion is with a very important article, a very interesting article about India's migration, right? So particularly workforce migration to the developed countries and to the countries in the Middle East, and how we are earning the remittances. And in fact, India is known as the country which has been receiving the highest remittances in the world. And apart from that, India is a country with a huge demographic dividend. We all knew about that. And in fact, India is a country with a huge working age population in the world. So therefore, there is a possibility that India can even export workforce to other countries as well. And the remittances could actually play a very important role in India's growth story. Now, in this context, we'll understand what is the potential of India in terms of addressing the workforce shortages across the world, and how remittances could actually play a very important role in India's inclusive development, particularly think factors like poverty alleviation, improving the living standards of the people, right? So apart from that, so what kind of a policy framework that India needs to establish in order to meet the future demands, right? Because we have a huge workforce, we have such a workforce where we can address the global workforce shortages, because most of the countries are considered as aged economies now. For example, most of the countries in Europe are aged economies. Countries like Japan are becoming aged economies, right? So in this context, don't you think that India has a lot of potential when we have a huge demographic dividend, and this demographic dividend can address the workforce challenges or shortages across the world, and that's how we can actually earn a huge remittances, and we can also address the problem of unemployment. The persistent rates of unemployment can also become down, right? So we'll try to discuss this in a very detailed manner, and this is very important for your general studies paper 3. So it may be asked in your general studies paper 3 and general studies paper 2 as well, right? So first of all, it is being said that India is a country with a huge demographic dividend. And in fact, India is also at a crucial juncture where we have a huge talent in India. So because of that particular reason, India is considered or called as a global talent hub, because we have a huge workforce, we have a huge talent, we have a huge resources, particularly the human resources, and that's why India is rightly called as a global talent hub. And in fact, it is being said that the high income countries across the world would face the labor shortages by 40 to 50 million. Now, why they face labor shortages? Because those countries are becoming aged economies. These countries are becoming aged economies. So since they are becoming aged economies, they need workforce. They require workforce to work in certain areas or certain sectors which require low skilled or semi-skilled labor, low skilled or semi-skilled labor force. So since in those aged economies the existing population is very less and the workforce is also very less, this actually provides an opportunity for countries like India with a huge talent, with a huge demographic dividend and also the working age population, and they can actually bridge this deficit. And in fact, the existing labor shortage in these economies amounts to around 40 to 50 million, right? So it could be 40 to 50 million by 2030. However, this number could further increase by 2040. So this number of labor shortage could become around 120 to 160 million by the year 2040. Now these countries, which are also known as aged economies, they look for the workforce from other countries, and that's where Indian workforce can actually play a very, very important role. And in fact, despite India having a young workforce or a large or a young workforce, just 1.3 percentage of India's population are considered as international migrants. So just 1.3% are considered as international migrants. So therefore you can imagine a very less number of people are migrated to other countries as workers or the workforce. So workforce from India to other countries is just 1.3 percentage of the total population. And despite just 1.3 percentage of the total workforce, so India is earning around 120 billion per annum in remittances. And these remittances are very, very important for a country like India. And in fact, India is the country which has been receiving the largest remittances, in the world, right? So therefore, India is just sending 1.3 percentage of its population as a workforce or international migrants to other countries. But when we make a comparison between India and other countries, now imagine that countries like Mexico, in total population of Mexico, around 8.6 percentage of its population are international migrants. So they are going to other countries as a workforce. And Philippines, the number is 5.1 percentage. And Bangladesh, the number is 4.3 percentage. Now remember, whenever you are writing an answer on this, it is being advised that please mention this data along with your answer. And that is very important because it gives legitimacy, it gives credibility to your answer, and there is also a possibility of you getting very, very good marks as well, right? So if you look at Mexico, Philippines, and even Bangladesh, so they are sending a good number of people as workforce to other countries compared to India, because it is just 1.3 percentage, but Mexico has been sending 8.6%, Philippines sending 5.1 percentage of its total population as the workforce, and even Bangladesh is also sending 4.3 percentage of its population as the international migrants or international to other countries as a workforce, right? So because of this particular reason, in future India is having an untapped potential, right? So India is actually having an enormous potential to increase the remittance income. So what is this remittance income? So we have I have already explained this to you. Remittance income, imagine that there is a person who is a citizen of India and who is working in an advanced economy country like US. So he earn the money and the money will be sent back to India to his or her family, and this money is considered as the remittances. And if India can increase the total number of workforce sent to other countries from 1.3 percentage to around 4 to 5 percentage, imagine that how much remittances that India could actually receive, and we can actually substantially increase the remittances income. And this remittance income plays also very, very important role because it contributes India's forex reserve. And it also contributes to economic growth, poverty alleviation in India, improving living standards of people, right? So it is having multiple advantages or multiple benefits as well. And because of this particular reason, India should actually explore the avenues, explore the opportunities to send India's workforce to other countries. Now we'll understand the demographic advantage that India is actually having and the remittance potential if we actually increase the number of migrants from 1.3 percentage to more than 5 percentage. If we can increase the workforce from India to other countries to bridge the shortage of existing workforce in those aged economies. Now what advantage does India have? We have already discussed that the total workforce that has been sent to other countries, or total international migrants are just 1.3 percentage of India's total population. However, just 1.3 percentage India's workforce who are working in other countries, they are sending around 125 billion in remittances, right? So 125 billion in remittances, that means 3% of India's GDP. 3% of India's GDP is sent as remittances by the workforce who are working in other countries. Now imagine that if this number is more than 5%, so more than 5% of India's total population who are working in other countries as a workforce, imagine how much remittances they could actually send to India. And that's where it is being said that we have a huge potential, right? So we have a huge potential because of certain advantages that we are already enjoying, right? So one advantage is existing demographic dividend in India, and in fact a huge talent pool that we have in India. And we can also skill the existing manpower. We can actually skill the existing manpower or existing workforce, which can actually suit the needs of other countries' workforce. And apart from that, there is a huge labor shortages as well. So labor shortages in terms, we have just understood that there is a 30 to 40 million workforce. 30 to 40 million workforce are required by the year 2030 in different countries, because those countries are becoming aged economies. They don't have adequate number of people to sustain their economic growth, and that's why they are looking for the workforce which is either skilled or semi-skilled or low skilled, and they can sustain their economic growth and economic activity, so that the countries continue to maintain the same level of economic growth. And that's how India is actually having an advantage. And in fact, there are certain countries which are considered as high income countries or advanced developed countries, and they are expected to face 160 million labor shortage, right? So they are going to face a labor shortage up to the tune of 160 million by the year 2040. However, there are certain sectors where we could see a higher demand for Indian workforce. What are those sectors? So healthcare sector, engineering, teaching and construction, right? So these are the high demand sectors that India could actually focus on and skill its existing workforce, and that's how this workforce can be readily employable in other countries, right? So therefore there is a need for a skilled and semi-skilled workforce in these different sectors, because these different sectors are high demand sectors in different parts of the world, because those different countries in the world are facing problems with the aged population. Aged population may not be able to supply adequate workforce that could sustain its economic growth. If those countries wanted to sustain their economic growth, they need workforce which is either skilled, semi-skilled or low skilled from other countries, and that's how India can actually work on the opportunity by skilling its existing workforce. The other problem that India has been facing is that less than 5% of India's total workforce is formally skilled, and that is a major problem that India has been facing. But when we compare this with other countries like US, so in US also around 45% of its population are formally skilled, and even countries like China also 43% of its population are formally skilled, and Japan, so around I think 87% of its population are formally skilled, and 90% of its total workforce are formally skilled in countries like South Korea. Now when we make a comparison between India and these countries, India still lags behind. So India needs to work on skill development of its existing workforce, and that is very, very important. And it is also said that there are number of studies which are conducted, right? So what are those studies which are actually conducted, right? So when we talk about the comparisons or the study that has been conducted, now remittances, as we have already discussed, that remittances is a source of improving living standards, alleviating poverty as well, right? So it is being said that a 10% increase in the remittances would certainly decrease 3.5% of poverty in a particular country, right? So therefore increasing remittances means decreasing the poverty rates and also improving the living standards of people. And improving living standards actually means that people can actually spend more on both education and healthcare, and that's how it leads to the quality human capital development, quality human capital development, or quality human resources development, right? So this is the advantage of demographic dividend, and this is the advantage of remittances. And apart from that, we should also talk about the strategic framework for the migration ecosystem. So what sort of a strategic framework that we should have for a migration ecosystem, right? So if India wanted to have a greater workforce in working in other countries, sending remittances back to India, contributing to India's GDP, contributing to poverty alleviation, contributing to economic growth and development, so of course we should have a proper policy framework. So without having a proper policy framework, without having a proper ecosystem, it is not at all possible, right? So it is not at all possible to increase the number of workforce, right? So therefore, what sort of a policy framework that India should actually have? So a centralized migration department should be created under the Ministry of External Affairs. So under the Ministry of External Affairs, we should have a centralized migration department. And in fact, this centralized migration department should be adequately supported by the state level units, because state level units should also be created, right? So these state level units should actually manage the data, manage the total workforce that is available, and they should actually look into skilling population, map the skills, and also have adequate data on the workforce which is already available, right? So this is what the state level units can actually do, right? So this centralized migration department should be supported by the state level units, and state level units would do all these different functions. And apart from that, there should be embassy based migration desks as well. So embassy based migration desks should also be established, right? So this is actually part of the policy framework. This is actually part of the policy framework that India should actually establish, so that more number of workforce can be skilled as per the requirements of those respective countries, and this workforce can also be readily employed in those respective countries, right? So once they are readily employed, it actually set a strong precedent for India to send workforce to other countries as well, and we could also earn a huge amount of demographic dividends. So this is how Philippines model actually works, right? So this is how Philippines has been increasing its total workforce working in other countries. And apart from that, we need to align India's skilling ecosystem with the international certification standards, right? So there are skills which are required at the international level, right? So those skills which are required at the international level, and the very same skills should be developed in India by establishing a strong framework, right? So for that, we need to align India's skilling ecosystem with international certification standards, right? So this will promote, we should also promote foreign language training, and pursuing mutual recognition agreements can facilitate a smoother employment in other countries. And apart from that, we should actually ensure that there is a mechanism to look after the needs of financing for these workforce, right? So if they are migrating to other countries for the purpose of finding an employment, so they need to meet the initial costs as well. So therefore, migrant training and placement costs range from 1 to 2 lakh or 5 to 10 lakh in Europe, or 1 to 2 lakh in Gulf Cooperation Council countries. So India should actually explore financing mechanisms. However, in Philippines, what has been happening is that the employer actually cover the pre-departure costs. So therefore, we should also establish such a mechanism, right? So it is also important to have such a mechanism so that it actually incentivizes the workforce to go to other countries, work in other countries, and they can also send remittances, and they can also contribute to economic growth and the development of India, right? So however, what are the policy initiatives that are required for a sustainable circular migration? Right? So there are certain policy initiatives that are required for a sustainable circular migration. So we'll look into those aspects. Firstly, India must negotiate the government to government mobility pacts, right? So India must have the for example, government to government pacts, in the sense that India and US workforce mobility pact. So we should have such an agreement, such a pact, because that will help streamline the visa norms. Visa would be easily available to the workforce who are ready to work in other countries if we have such an agreement with the other countries. And apart from visa norms, it will also help recognizing the qualifications of the workforce, qualification recognition, and similarly enhancing the cultural integration, and ultimately it will result in strengthening the people to people ties, and also developing this soft power, as well. Now here Philippines is having the best model, because Philippines as of now having this government to government pacts with more than 65 countries. And apart from that, another policy initiative that can be a best followed is that there should be a national mobility and industry association, right? So we need to establish a national mobility and industry association, and that can actually help formalize the recruitment sector, right? So whatever recruitment sector that we follow, so that recruitment sector has to be formalized to readily send the workforce to other countries, and there should be ethical hiring standards, and these ethical hiring standards should be promoted, and there is a need to bridge industry government coordination gaps as well. And similarly, adopting the International Labour Organization's complaint welfare norms. So International Labour Organization has also set up certain welfare norms as well. So those welfare norms have to be complied with. For example, minimum wage has to be provided, there should be safe housing, there should be legal aid provided, and apart from that, post return support should also be provided for the workforce, right? So all these things will certainly help them contribute to the local development on return, right? So when they came back, they could contribute to the local development where they belong to. So ultimately, what it is talking about is we have a huge advantage in terms of the demographic dividend, in terms of total workforce population, in terms of demographic dividend, in terms of the talented workforce, talented workforce. So it is also said that India's 1.3 total workforce or total population are working abroad. Even though just 1.3% of India's workforce is working abroad, they are sending 125 billion remittances every year, and it is the largest in the world. So since we have a huge demographic dividend, we have a huge workforce, talented workforce, so India can actually increase the number to about 5% of India's total population should work in other countries, because on the other hand, there are different economies which are facing the problem of aging. So those economies are called as aged economies. So aged economies lack the workforce. However, this shortage of lack of workforce can be effectively met by India's workforce. And in fact, these remittances are also the source of development. They also reduce the poverty, and they can also increase the living standards of people in India. So that's how India should actually explore avenues to send the workforce to bridge the workforce shortage in other developed economies, right? So this is what this article has been explaining us. And next is a human India genome project, right? So, or Genome India project. So this is a very, very important project that the government of India has commissioned to understand human genome, right? So to understand human genome or genome sequencing will be done. So once we do the genome sequencing, we can actually understand diseases which are specific to a particular community, and diseases which are specific to a group of individuals. And the data we have by this Genome India project will be used to tailor healthcare or design medicine, understand the diseases which are caused by these which mostly are genetic diseases or rare diseases, and we can also understand the mutations. Which actually takes place in human genome. So therefore, Genome India project is a very, very important project. So with the help of this project, whatever data that we have, it will be certainly helpful for us to understand healthcare in a better manner, understand diseases in a much more better manner, right? So we'll try to discuss about this Genome India project. So what exactly is this Genome India project? What are the benefits? What are the advantages of the Genome India project? And in fact, this Genome India project was launched in January 2020, and it is most ambitious program, right? So it is one of most ambitious program, and this program aimed to map the genetic diversity of India's people, and this particular Genome India project is now completed, and its data is also ready to be used. So whatever data that we have through the Genome India project, that is ready to be used. And in fact, this Genome India project has actually catalogued the entire gene sequences of 10,000 individuals in India, right? So it has sequenced the genetic information of 10,000 individuals from 83 population groups, right? So now it is being done at a small scale. So we have sequenced the genetic information of 10,000 individuals in 83 population groups. So the database that we have generated through the Genome India project will be eventually expanded significantly further, right? So as part of the Genome India project itself, so the database will be further expanded so that we would have a greater insights into the genetic or genome sequencing of Indian population. However, it is already a precious set of information. So whatever 10,000 individuals genome sequencing information that we have, it is a precious set of information with important implications in healthcare, medicine, and very other areas. And in fact, the preliminary findings of the Genome India project, so in which around 20 Indian academic and research institutions have participated, and even 100 scientists have participated in this Genome India project, right? So 20 Indian institutes and research institutes along with 100 scientists took part in this Genome India project. And in fact, it has been recently published in journal Nature Genetics. And the data that has been generated through the Genome India project, so it is the analysis of the data is very, very important. However, this analysis is still ongoing. However, the full results are planned to be published next year, right? So the results of the Genome India project will be published next year. So whatever genome database that we have, it will actually open up a huge possibilities of a personalized medicine and even faster and efficient diagnostics of various diseases, particularly the genetic diseases, right? So the Genome India project, whatever data we have, so that data will be helpful to understand the genetic diseases in a much more efficient and effective manner, and it will also result in the possibility of personalized medicine for various diseases. And in fact, the genome sequence data through the Genome India project that we already have, it can actually reveal important information about the evolutionary history. So how, human beings evolved, how Indian population groups evolved over a period of time. And in fact, it also gives us important information about the population of groups within India and how they adapted themselves to the existing environmental conditions, existing climatic conditions. So it is very, very important to understand all these different aspects, right? So it is having the anthropological importance, medical importance, and it also plays a very, very important role in understanding the new diseases, diagnostics of those diseases, finding out medicines for those diseases, and even personalized care as well. However, whatever data that we have, this data will be analyzed, and apart from analyzing this data, so this set of data will be further expanded as well to cover more number of people, more number of population groups all across India. And most importantly, this genome database that we have generated through the Genome India project, it will help improve human health. So we have already understood how it will help improve the human health, right? So we have already understood how it will help improve the human health, because the genome sequences have been prepared after obtaining the blood samples from individuals. So we have understood that 10,000 individuals genome sequencing has been done under the Genome India project. So under Genome India project, genome sequencing would be done. So genome sequencing means understanding the base pairs among the genetic material of these different individuals, right? So base pairs are actually the adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, right? So we'll try to understand this as well. So a full genome of an individual means that getting an exact order in which nucleotide molecules in human DNA are arranged, right? So the nucleotide molecules in human DNA are approximately 3 billion long sequences, right? So they actually formed in 3 billion long sequences, and there are 4 nucleotide molecules. These 4 nucleotide molecules which are common in human DNA is adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, right? So it is also known as ATCG. So along with the phosphate molecule, sugar molecule, they come together and they form long double helix DNA strands, right? So this is how they actually form long double helix DNA molecules. So DNA strands, which is essentially the genetic blueprint of the individual, right? So this actually forms the genetic blueprint of the individual. And in fact, more than 99.9% of the nucleotide base pairs is same in all human beings, but the only difference is 0.1% difference that can actually make a person unique, not just in the outer appearance, but also person's height, facial features, but also in the behavioral tendencies of the individual. Only 0.1% of the differences in the nucleotide base pairs. So that makes the whole difference among the human beings. And this actually means that every individual, about 3 to 4 million nucleotide molecules are uniquely placed, or they are different, right? And this actually gives rise to the diversity among the human populations. And apart from that, people within the closed and isolated population groups, so they are likely to have a fewer variations. For example, people, they belong to a common group, a common community, so they would have a lesser variations in their nucleotide sequences. However, heterogeneous populations will actually show a greater genetic diversity, and heterogeneous populations are also very important for a sustainable levels of population, right? So in this context, the Genome India project has generated a huge database, and how this database is going to help us, we'll try to understand this as well, right? So the Genome India project, scientists actually collect, store what is known as germline sequence. So through the Genome India project, scientists actually collect and store the germline sequence, right? So germline sequence is actually the nucleotide sequence that a person was conceived or born with, right? So the germline sequence is nothing but a nucleotide sequence that human beings actually born with. So that is what is called as the germline sequence. And over a period of time, what happens is that the genetic sequence of the person changes, right? So the genetic sequence of the person changes over a period of time with every cycle of cell division, introducing few more variations called mutations. So over a period of time, mutations will take place, and because of these mutations, the genetic sequence that is in the human beings, it also changes regularly. So germline sequences are obtained from white blood cells that are relatively better at preserving the original sequence during the cell division, right? So therefore, among other things, the unique parts of this germline sequence could offer a clues about individuals' predisposition towards certain diseases and certain disorders that individuals are actually born with. And in fact, so the population group as a whole might be predisposed to certain diseases because all the individuals in the group have a same pattern in the consequential part of the sequence. And because of this particular reason, one single group would experience the same kind of a diseases. So one such example is that there is a widespread prevalence of diabetes in Indian population, and it could be likely linked to the genetic makeup of India's population. Therefore, the kind of information that can be handy in developing population specific drugs, right? So whatever data that we have generated through the Genome India project, so that data can be effectively analyzed, and that information can be effectively used for developing population specific drugs that could address diseases like diabetics and mapping the genetic diversity of the entire population. So we should actually map the genetic diversity of entire population, which is what the Genome India project seeks to do, can help us develop health policies, targeted interventions, particularly focusing on rare genetic diseases found only in the Indian population. And we can also target those diseases, personalized healthcare, personalized medicine, and quick diagnostics of various genetic diseases, and greater understanding of the reasons for those genetic diseases, and also preventing the genetic diseases would have important implications in the healthcare, particularly Indian healthcare. And that is why the Genome India project has been commissioned. So the other important details with respect to Genome India project, so you can go through this information as well. And the next important topic is European Space Agency's biomass satellite has been revolutionizing global forest monitoring, right? So we will understand how European Space Agency's biomass satellite is going to revolutionize forest monitoring. The one thing that we should understand that across the globe there is a huge deforestation that has been taking place, right? So deforestation is a common phenomenon that has been taking place, and every day we have been losing the forests are lost. And apart from that, forest fires is also another major problem, or wildfires is also another major problem that we have been experiencing. But on the other hand, forest plays a very important role in carbon sequestration, reducing the levels of carbon reducing the levels of global warming, climate change, or altering the climate. And they are also providing livelihood for India's population, and they are also source of biodiversity, ecosystem conservation of protection of species, right? So conservation of protection of species, biodiversity conservation, sequestration, minimizing global warming, and they also provide livelihoods to the several populations, right? So because of all these advantages that we have with forests, it is very, very important to protect forests. So we need to monitor the forests and we need to conserve the forest ecosystems as well. So for that particular reason, the European Space Agency is set to launch its 7th Explorer mission, right? So its 7th Explorer mission is Mission Biomass. So Mission Biomass is the 7th Explorer mission of European Space Agency on board Vega C rocket. So Vega C rocket is being used for this Mission Biomass, and the objective of Mission Biomass is to revolutionize the monitoring of the forest biomass. And Vega C rocket will be launched from the French Guiana. And in fact, the satellite will be placed around the sun synchronous orbit at an altitude of around 666 kilometers. And the objective of this European Space Agency's biomass mission, it aims to address the lack of large-scale data. So we actually lack a large-scale global data on forest biomass. So European Space Agency biomass mission will collect a large-scale data, will generate a large-scale data on the global forest biomass as well as the forest height as well. And that data is very important and very critical for understanding the forest ecosystems and the role of forests in carbon cycle, carbon sequestration, climate regulation, and other important benefits or advantages that we have talked about the forest ecosystems. So few other things that we should also understand about the forest is that when we have forests can also reduce the disasters. The intensity and frequency of the disasters can also be substantially reduced by forests. Now, why Kerala has been frequently experiencing landslides? So it has been frequently experiencing landslides because of the deforestation. So deforestation has been resulting in landslides. Deforestation would also result in floods, flash floods, right? And there are a number of disasters which could be associated with the deforestation as well. And the most important function this forest can actually do, they can actually sequester carbon. They play a very important role in carbon cycle, and they can also effectively prevent the climate change. They can actually minimize the global warming as well, right? So importance of the forest, we'll try to understand the importance of the forest. So what importance that forests have for the human beings? Forests actually absorb 16 billion metric tons of CO2 every year. So this is actually a huge amount of CO2 that is being absorbed by the forest almost every year, and they even store 861 gigatons of carbon in branches, leaves, roots, and even their soils as well, right? So however, why tracking deforestation or carbon emissions is very important for a country for across the entire world, and for that particular purpose European Space Agency has launched mission biomass. European Space Agency's mission biomass, right? So there are certain reasons that in 2023 the world has actually lost 3.7 million hectares of tropical forests, right? So in a one single year the world has lost 3.7 millions of hectares of tropical forests and 10 soccer fields almost like every minute. So that is the level of deforestation that has been taking place, and deforestation also contributing to the global warming and also the climate change as well. And deforestation has contributed to around 6% of the global CO2 emissions, and CO2 emissions means it would result in global warming, it would also result in climate change as well. However, this European Space Agency's mission biomass help monitor how carbon levels are changing due to deforestation and even due to the human activity. So this is the biggest aim of the European Space Agency's biomass mission, and the technological approach or how it will help protect, conserve, monitor forest biomass, height of the forest, prevent forest deforestation, and enhance the role of the forest in carbon cycle or even carbon sequestration. So the mission will create 3D images of forests from the canopy or to the ground using advanced radar imaging. So it actually uses advanced image radaring, so advanced radar imaging, and that will help create the 3D images of the forest. And in fact this mission will help understand the forest quality, diversity, and even the carbon storage as well. So it can even monitor ice sheet movements in African continent. So ice sheets are moving at a faster pace because the global warming, climate change has a higher impact in these polar areas, and because of the global warming and climate change the ice caps, glaciers are melting, and that contributes to the movement of these ice sheets, and that further increases the sea level as well. And it can even produce digital terrain models in areas which are being covered with dense vegetation. So these are the important applications, important objectives of the mission biomass that is being launched by the European Space Agencies to understand the forest importance of forest biomass or forest height for its carbon cycle, or its important applications in the area of carbon cycle, carbon sequestration, reducing the levels of global warming, and also improving the livelihoods of the people, right? So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.